The first Call of Duty raid has arrived with Atomgrad, and tonight we went through it on normal and then we completed it on veteran. So I'm here to give you a full guide on how to complete this raid on veteran. It is very challenging, but it's definitely doable, and along the way I'll explain the differences between normal and veteran. So this guide will work if you just want to complete it on normal too. If you find the video useful, if you just find it interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get started. So in the first section of the raid you have a kind of stealth section. This bit requires you to go along a long waterway where there's going to be enemies on both sides, and all you need to do in this part is get to the end of it essentially. On hard mode you can see in the top left one big difference that you have for every single encounter in it is that you only have 3 revives. So that means you can only revive people 3 times, then if anyone goes down that's it, game over. But you can start at the last checkpoint. It's not like super punishing, it doesn't send you back to the beginning of the mission or anything, and every time you do restart from a checkpoint you get those 3 revives back. Now we completed this mission by just taking out these first set of guards. There's a group of 3 guards at the beginning. Because there's 3 of us we could just take one down each, and then we pretty much just swam to the end of it. We spent a long time trying to see if we could do this in full stealth, but if you're on veteran not only do you have some extra guards, but you've got a bunch of juggernauts just kind of patrolling at really awkward points at the end, so that made this a little bit trickier to do. So I swam up here just next to Flynn because we were going to take out this next pair of guards on the right, but they actually walked away, so we decided not to. Now when you're swimming underwater, if you go through the right underneath this little bit, you'll find that there's a hatch you can bob up in under relative safety, just to make sure that you get a little bit more oxygen so you can go further underwater. If you get that little yellow marker at the top and it turns amber then it turns red, that means you're being detected, so you want to kind of move and get out of there fairly quickly. But then if you just go around a corner you can get to another section where again you've got kind of relative safety. People will see you if you're in the wrong angle, but you can kind of breathe there for a little bit, and then you just swim past this sunken boat and you're aiming to try and get to this kind of clear bit in the middle. When you get past the boat, about 20 yards past there, you can rise up and no one's going to be looking at you for a while, which is super useful. Now you can go back underwater and there's actually another little hatch just on the right through here. So if you swim all the way down just past this light and then go through on the right, there's a hatch where you've got a real sort of safety point and you can work out what you're going to do. Now when we were doing this we were still trying to work out if we could get to the end without the guards seeing us, without all hell breaking loose. But spoilers, that didn't work so well. So if you climb up this ladder, there are going to be a couple of guards at the top, and if you go under the water, there's actually another hatch you can pop out of where there's a juggernaut standing right next to you. If you go into the main waterway, there is a little room you'd be able to get into, but you can't climb out of the water and through the window, which I think is probably what you're actually kind of meant to do, but it doesn't seem to work. So I climbed up here hoping I could do some kind of execution on the guards up here, but that didn't work. So you can see here, I just end up slapping him a little bit and then he goes a little bit crazy. This means that all of the guards are starting to see me, but I ran into this room and this actually ended up working quite well. I could use the doors for cover and then just kind of give a little bit of cover to Flynn and Scotto, who are my teammates who were doing this, and try to take out as many of them as possible. There are a couple of juggernauts here which make it much harder, but this little situation, this little room, does seem to kind of break the AI. The juggernauts didn't really bother with me at all. They just engaged Flynn and Scotto, so I could just sit back here and pick them off very slowly. Now the people who are back where the hatch was, where Flynn is right now on the other side of that wall, you actually have quite a lot of cover there. Even though there's just pieces of plywood covering you, it seems like the enemies can't hit you very easily when you're standing on the other side of it, or if you're just bobbing in that little hatch. So this seems to be quite a good strategy to have one person try to get into this room and then the others hang back a little bit, just confuse the AI a little bit, and hopefully you can take out all of the enemies just in this final section. And once they're all dead, I actually finish off a juggernaut with a pistol here. Once they're all dead, then everyone can come into this room because this is where you need to be for the next puzzle.
Enemy juggernaut is down.
I kept shutting the doors in this section, but for whatever reason they kept opening. It was annoying. Now you need to send one person through into the other room. It doesn't really matter who you send through, you're going to have to swap around, but one person needs to hold that button. It kind of opens a barrier while you're holding it, and then someone else can run through. You only need one person in that other room, but you're going to have to rotate a little bit as you go on. So just send whoever, it doesn't really matter.
Found another room.
Now all three of you are going to have a job. Basically, one person is going to be reading the little red device on the far left here, one person is going to be using the CCTV cameras in this room, and one person's going to be using the CCTV cameras in the other room. And the people on the CCTV cameras, if they scroll through by pressing left on the D-pad, they should be able to find a room where there's 3 Russian letters on the screen and then 3 numbers underneath it. So one person who's not using the CCTV monitors will see this screen where there'll be a bunch of red symbols. It starts with 3 and then there's 4 and then there's 5. They need to just keep in their mind what these symbols are. All of the puzzles in the raid revolve around these symbols, so it's good to kind of get to know them and get used to them. So for example, we would call this backwards N, house, E, and then right angle. I know it looks like an R, but there's loads of different R's in this, so we didn't want to make it any more confusing than it needs to be. Later on, you need to be able to very quickly say what these symbols are. Now, the easiest way we found to do this was for the people looking through the CCTV to one at a time read the symbols out that they have. So I would say backwards N, E, W. Then the person looking at the red letters could say which one of those correspond to something that they're looking at, and then I could tell them what numbers link to that symbol. So in this case, it would be backwards N and E. Then the person looking at the CCTV could say 7, then 6. Now you have to do the same thing for the other person looking at the other set of CCTV cameras to find the missing one. There'll always be 3 symbols and then therefore 3 numbers that correspond to the ones you see on the red screen. So if there's say 4 characters on the red screen, one of those characters will be something that you don't need, so you ignore that one. Once you've got the numbers that match up to the 3 symbols that you do have, that will give you a 3-digit code which you need to go over and put in on the keypad. You have to do this 3 times and each person can only use the keypad once, so you all have to swap roles each time. After each time you successfully enter the code, all of the screens will reset, the red digits will have an extra character on them, but you just keep following the same process until you've done it 3 times. Once you've completed that, the CCTV cameras will show you that the doors are opening and now you can access the area where the submarine is kept. So to get there, just make sure someone opens the door to let you out. They don't want to leave you behind in there. And then if you just run through this room on the right, you can hop through a window there and then you can get into the water straight away. So if there's any straggling enemies, you don't need to worry about them. Now we're going to start the underwater maze. So on the normal difficulty for this, you don't actually have a time limit for the underwater maze. You just have to try and do it without drowning. On veteran, you have to do the entire thing in 9 minutes or less. And I think that starts from when someone uses the air tank for the first time. So someone needs to pick up the air tank from the bench. And now this is the only air tank you get. You need to kind of manage this throughout the entire maze. So the way this works is that the first person who took it in with them just swim a little way, then use the air tank by pulling the right trigger. And then the next person can interact with that person and it will take the air tank off them. You don't have to give the air tank to people. You just take it off them. So then the second person breathes and then the third person takes it, they breathe, and then the first person takes it and they breathe. And basically the entire time that you're swimming through this, you're constantly swapping that air tank between the 3 of you. Try to do it in turn in the same order, otherwise one person's going to struggle. And then you should be able to just keep on breathing indefinitely. Now the maze itself isn't actually that hard. There's a bunch of arrows along the way that kind of point you in the right direction. But obviously I'll leave up the entire video for you so you can see the route that we took. We do actually skip one of the safe rooms in this, and that wasn't intentional, we were just going faster. Once you get to this button, one person needs to hold that button open, preferably someone who's just breathed, and then the other 2 go through. One person holds it open again, and then you can all get through. And just after that door, there's actually a bit that you can go up here. It will checkpoint for you, which is quite nice. And it means all of you can just sort of pause for a second, recover, and get ready to go in for the next bit. So for the next part of the maze, you want to go straight down towards that red light, and then you open up this sort of barred gate on the side. And now in this area, you've got to watch out for trip mines as well. If you have 3 plates and you're the assault class, you can actually tank one of the trip mines going off without dying, which is pretty handy, as you'll see. But what you want to do is just keep on going through. Where those green glow sticks are, you go through this office and then you can go out the other side of it. Remember to just keep on swapping that air tank. We're doing it all the time. Obviously, all 3 of you have to stay super close together for this to work. And then you go through here over this kind of debris. And you can see the arrows on the side there will kind of point you in the right direction. So you can breathe there. And then when you get to these doors, you should just be able to open them up, go through and keep on following those arrows. It was very nice of the designers to leave a bunch of arrows for us. Now this door on the right is actually locked. It's a kind of part of the maze where you can open up shortcuts for yourself, but you don't need to. So you just go through this door instead and then round to the right and open up the next door. And you'll see some more green lights around a big hole in the floor, and this is where you're going to go down next. But there's a load of trip mines, so this is where my armor plates really came in handy. It very nearly killed me, but I managed to survive because I was this old class and I had 3 armor plates. So now you just swim down here and you've got quite a bit of swimming to do, so keep on swapping that air tank between you. It's a little bit stressful doing this, but it's not actually too bad. Don't get distracted by the side tunnels, just keep on going forwards towards the lights, and then you can climb up and you've got another little kind of air gap here, but you can climb up through that, through a safe area, so now you get a checkpoint, and you can go into the next bit where you need to jump down into this giant hole. You can see there we only had 6 minutes 10 seconds, but while we were in the safe area it wasn't running out at all. So while we weren't using the air tank underwater, we weren't using up that timer, so if you need to wait there a bit you can. So now you just keep on going down through into this mine section, go down this little side bit past the mesh fence. Remember to keep grabbing the air tank and you'll find more arrows. That arrow's pointing down a bit, so you can see here you go down some stairs. Keep on heading down and then you see that big yellow sign. You want to turn right at the yellow sign. Keep following the wall around the edge as best you can. That makes it a little bit easier to see. And then there's another yellow sign you can go towards. I very nearly get lost here. But now you go down this corridor, which is very lucky we actually went down there. Then turn left and you'll see this kind of reddish area where there's a bit more rubble and debris. This is the next bit you want to go to, and you should be able to swim up through this bit, up into the tunnel. A couple more yellow signs which always kind of let you know you're going in the right direction. You're always looking for something a little bit different. And then in this next room, it looks like you should be able to get air, but I don't think you can. I don't think there's actually a place to. So instead you go through this giant bunker door, which looks a lot like the bunker door that is on Al Mazrah, just saying. And then you go up into a safe area. Now this one's a little bit different. This one has the tiniest little puzzle. Basically, there is a cable that leads to a red switch that someone needs to hold to open this door. To activate the red switch, you need to activate a generator first. So you need to go back into that safe area where you can breathe, go up there, and you should be able to see the generator on the side. Once someone has interacted with that, that will give you enough energy to be able to activate the switch once. So I went through, pressed it. I didn't have the air tank with me on this side because I'm just next to the bit where you can breathe anyway, so it doesn't matter. I held it so both the other two could go through. Then I came back up here and they can't activate the switch to let me through until I've activated the generator again. So you kind of need to re-energize the whole system, reactivate the generator just by swimming over to it and interacting with it. So that's what I do here. I just go up, interact with it, turn on the generator. Thankfully you don't get electrocuted or anything, even though you're soaking wet. And then you can swim through the door, where hopefully the other two have been swapping the air between them. But if you go up these stairs, you'll get out of the water, and now you are done with the underwater labyrinth. Now in this next room there are 2 guards, so it's worth just paying attention, kill them, make sure you don't die to these, that'd be quite embarrassing. But there's only 2 guards in this bit, and now you are in a massive armory where you've got a chance to get loads of guns. So there's some M4s there's some various Kastovs laying around, there's a few SMGs, you can pick up Molotovs, C4 if you want them. Remember, because this is Spec Ops, you actually have a backpack, which means you can pick up all kinds of different lethals and things like that and store them for later. And you are going to need them later, so pick up absolutely everything you think you're ever going to use. This Vel 46 I picked up is super handy. It has 60 rounds in a magazine, and later a big magazine is going to help you out a bunch. So make sure you pick that one up. It's super useful. Also, this is a good opportunity to armor up. You're going to be fighting a load of enemies, obviously, because the game just gave you loads of ammo and guns and stuff like that. So in the next couple of corridors, all you've got to do really is fight through a few waves of enemies. They're not too hard if you take it slow. Like, we didn't really have too much trouble with this, but you are going to be fighting some juggernauts as well. Don't get too intimidated by the juggernauts. They're not like the ones in DMZ. They go down much, much faster than that, especially if all 3 of you are shooting them in the head at the same time. They actually go down suspiciously quickly. You can see there where Alex has left a little 3-1 symbol on the side. That's pretty cool. Now you go through, you'll see there's doors on the left and right. They open up and release a load of guards. This happens a couple of times, so make sure you take it slow, hang back a little bit. You don't need to push up. You're not under any kind of time pressure or anything like that here. It's just a situation where you need to get lots and lots of kills quite quickly. Also, as I'm watching this footage back, I'm realizing that I completely forgot that I had a grenade launcher underbarrel on this M4. I don't think I ever used it, which kind of sucks. I was having a quick look around these rooms to see if I can find any intel. There are 20 pieces of intel on this map apparently. I've only found one of them, which kind of sucks. But here's the first Juggernaut, so we're just throwing fire at him, shooting. I think I missed. But you can see how incredibly fast he went down when a bunch of us shot him at once. Now, that room on the right that Flynn just went into, there's a button in there. Once you press that, a load of these other doors are going to open and a bunch of smoke grenades are going to go off. So we found it easier to just retreat back into this corridor, because then you can just shoot all of them as they come through. Kind of hard to see them until the smoke wears off, so throw Molotovs and stuff like that in. But if you're caught in the middle there, it's actually quite a terrifying moment. So it's a very, very good idea to just back up a little bit, wait for the other Juggernaut to come out, and then you can take them down and kill all of these enemies.
The doors are open now. I found a way.
Now, this green hole in the floor is where you're going to be heading to next. Now, it might be worth just going through these rooms, seeing if you can loot some of the stuff off the enemies. Ammo is a really, really big problem in this mode. Like, the raid seems to really challenge you in terms of how much ammo it's going to allow you to have. There is a riot shield here. We tried using that the first time we went through this, when we went through it on normal. I found a riot shield wasn't that useful, so I just left it here this time. But if you want to try using a riot shield, you can. I just found that it means that you've got less ammunition because you've only got one gun full of ammo to do the next parts. So now you go down this little tunnel. It seems like it's going to be some kind of maze, but if you just follow straight down the middle path, you'll get to where you need to go. There is a bit of intel just on the right here if you want to go grab that piece. We've got it on the first run through, so we didn't need to get it this time. So once you've gone through here, you'll find a little hole that you can drop into. Now you're going to be going into some semi-submerged tunnels, and this is actually basically you're at the end of the raid now. You've got 2 more encounters to do, but they all take place in this final area. So as you're going through these tunnels, one thing to watch out for is bomb drones. They will start flying around now. They seem to be kind of semi-random when they turn up. Sometimes you'll just see one, sometimes there'll be a pair of them, sometimes there'll be an entire swarm, but they are super dangerous. I would say in this entire raid, we got killed more by bomb drones than anything else, because if they detonate while they're right above you, they can very easily down you. Now, in all the rest of the raid, we didn't seem to have that much extra challenge from it being in Veteran. There might have been a few extra Juggernaut spawns, a few extra enemies here and there, but the real challenge was just managing those revives, making sure people didn't go down, making sure you could kind of survive for long enough to complete the objectives. But we weren't getting extra objectives thrown at us, so all of the stuff that you're going to see from now on is basically exactly the same as it is in the normal version of the raid. Now, the next sections that you're watching here are just us clearing the area. This is the big kind of final zone, so it's worth paying a little bit of attention to it. Try to pay attention to where you're going and how far between different objectives, just because later on you're going to be running, you're going to have to be swapping roles in this area, and it's really helpful to know where you need to go. We had a Juggernaut fight here. I think that was something that's just for Veteran. I think on normal you don't have a Juggernaut there, but again, you saw just how quickly they went down. This keypad on the left is the first kind of proper objective you're going to see, and then there's another one of those little devices that shows you some red symbols. Then you need to move over, just because you're going to be clearing this area out before you can start the next objective, and climb up here into one of the control rooms. So these are the control rooms that you were looking at through the CCTV cameras earlier, and they basically work the exact same way. There's a big screen, and on them there's going to be 3 Russian characters and then 3 numbers underneath. So this is going to be very similar to what you did right at the start of the raid, where you had the 2 banks of CCTV monitors and the other computer, where you see some red Russian characters flash up on the screen, and then the people who can see the big screens can tell them which symbols relate to which numbers, except now instead of being next to each of you, you're all going to be in very different parts of the map. This is incredibly dangerous, and it's a very tough section. So one of you needs to be at the device, so where you'll see the red numbers at the screen, the bit that we just saw. One of you needs to be in one of the big rooms where you're going to have numbers on the wall, and then the other person needs to be at the other one. The person with the device with the red symbol should be able to broadcast a symbol, and then immediately the letters and numbers will appear in both rooms. Call them out as quickly as you can. Like I said, we just called out the symbols that we had, so that one would have been 3 and then backwards R and W. And then the person at the device can tell you what they need, and you can give them the numbers. It's really useful if you can very quickly look at that screen, remember what the numbers are that attach to which symbol, and then start moving back, because as soon as someone's typed in the correct code, you're actually going to need to all swap around. Because just like last time, once one person has entered a correct code, they now can't use the machine again, so someone else has to do it. So then you all need to swap around to make sure they're all covered. Now in this one, somebody got the code wrong, so I had to go back, and you can see at the top there where it says displaying cipher 1. There's actually quite a strict time limit on this. So if you get one wrong, it's probably easier to wait for the time limit to expire so you can do it with the next set of characters instead. If you type in the wrong password 3 times in a row, you have to start this all from the beginning. But here I could see W, backwards Ks, and then right angle, and it was 369. So I could just say those are the symbols I had. He could tell me which one of those symbols he needed, and I gave him the numbers. And then I immediately started moving, because that room is an absolute death trap. There'll be bomb drones coming in, there'll be guards coming in. It really is a nightmare. Unfortunately, if you do leave, it means that the next person who has to go into that room is going to have loads of AI to deal with, which kind of sucks. So you can see here the code sequence was correct. So I ran back in to get the next one because Scott and Flynn were quite close to each other, so they could just swap quickly. I could see very quickly 3 backwards NT, and it was 656. So I could easily call that one out and then just run away. I didn't really have to deal with anything else, which was very, very useful as Flynn went down here, so I could try and get over to him so he didn't have to burn his self-revive. Now that did mean that I'd just left loads and loads of AI in that back room, but we'd already completed 2 of the ciphers, and you'd seen how little time I spent in that room. Originally we were trying to guard them for ages, trying to defend them against wave after wave of enemy, but it's just too difficult and it's too likely that you're going to go down. So instead we were trying to run into the room, grab the codes, and then get out and do this whole thing as quickly as possible. So now it's my turn to do the codes, and I just waited for it to expire, and then I could see there was H, N, House, M, and B. So I was just waiting for them to call out the things that we needed, and then I was keeping an eye on it, just trying to visualize which numbers would associate with which ones, because remember, only 3 of these are going to actually link to numbers that the others can see. Unfortunately, Flynn went down there, so he couldn't quite see which ones there were, and we only had 4 seconds left, so I just waited for the cycle to begin rather than guessing it and risking setting up the whole thing. This time I had O, E, N, 3 and Y. It's not the backwards N, it's the sort of normal little N, but thankfully that one didn't come up. So again, I just had to wait this time because Scott had to go res Flynn. Just had to wait for them to get back in their position so they could type something in. It was 557 and I could type that in and complete this entire section. So if you need tips for that bit, if you're struggling with that bit, I strongly suggest you do it just as quickly as possible. Try not to have to defend in those rooms where you can see the codes. Just dip in to see what they are and then go back into the corridors so you can help each other, so you can res each other and things like that. Now for the last section, all you need to do is wait for the keypad blast doors to unlock. So just near the keypad there's a big set of blast doors and you're going to have to defend them until the time runs out. This was by far the hardest part of the veteran raid for us. This is the bit we struggled with the most. We died so much. I'm not going to show you all of the horrible deaths, and we normally died with like a second left to go on a timer, or when a timer had expired, because then you just have to kill the last set of enemies. But I'll try and talk you through how we found the best way to do it. So first of all, you want to defend from the blast doors themselves. If you try to defend from anywhere else, the enemies will set bombs with very short timers on the devices, on the keypads or whatever the thing is that has the red symbols, and if they go off, the mission's over. So you really have to defend here to prevent them from doing that. Enemies will be coming from both sides, so we basically had Scotto looking down the right on this side, and I would try and help him whenever he called out that there was a swarm of bomb drones or something like that, and then Flynn could hold down the other side, which seemed to have a few less enemies. We only seemed to get like 1 or 2 juggernauts come from that side, which made it a lot easier. We tried to space out a little bit just because there was a really big problem with the swarms of bomb drones. Often you'd miss 1 or 2 of them, and then if one of them detonated over 2 of you and knocked you both out, that was often just the end of the run. Whenever there was a juggernaut, we'd call it out very quickly just to try and burn them down as fast as possible. A big problem in this section is that you run out of ammo very quickly, and because the water is so high, it's actually quite hard to find guns to replace the ammo. You don't seem to auto pick up very much ammo at all in this. Whenever the bomb drones are coming like that, especially with the swarm, you can actually see the light from them a long time before you can see the bomb drones. So you'll see a kind of yellow light coming around the corner, and that'll shift to red. As soon as that happens, you need to clear out those drones as fast as is humanly possible. I think they're actually more dangerous than a juggernaut, at least with the juggernaut juggernauts, you can slow them down with stun grenades and things like that. This is the last encounter in a raid, so any tacticals you've got, any lethals you've got, just absolutely burn through them. Whenever there's juggernauts, you can throw flash grenades out at them. If you've got molotovs or semtexes that you picked up in the armory earlier, that helps a bunch. Just absolutely use everything to try and survive. If you get hit too much and you think you're about to die, you can duck underneath the water. That could be very, very helpful. And constantly be on the lookout for other guns that you can pick up, because like I said, you're not going to be picking up very much extra ammo, so that means all of those guns on the floor are probably going to be your main weapons towards the end. If you can keep something with a big magazine for the last few seconds, that really, really helps a bunch. Now, around this mark, so around 1 minute 40, 1 minute 30, some other doors will open just on that side where Flynn was, which meant for us, we had to kind of group up a little bit more, because otherwise you're starting to get separated by all of the AI, which was a nightmare if anyone went down or needed cover. Remember, whenever you kill a juggernaut, it will drop one of these miniguns. Sometimes for some reason they only had 100 ammo. If they had 200 ammo like this one did, that was really, really useful, because you could take down the AI super quickly with them. You could take out juggernauts super quickly with them if you needed to. And because they kind of spread fire a little bit, the swarms of drones seem to die to them really quickly as well. You can see here we had our first person go down. Scotto went down with only about a minute left. That was pretty good for us. If people die before that, you're going to be struggling a lot. Like, you're really going to run out of revives if you're playing it on veteran and those revives count. So maybe it's just worth restarting from checkpoint. At any point while you're doing the veteran raid, you can restart from checkpoint and it'll be absolutely fine. It doesn't mind you doing that at all. So now, as it gets towards the last 30 seconds, you'll start having juggernauts come from both sides. You'll start having swarms of bomb drones come at the same time. If someone goes down here, it's an absolute nightmare, because while you're trying to revive them, while you're trying to put more armor on yourself, you'll be having bomb drones start flooding in all over the place. Thankfully for us, it seemed like we'd managed to kill quite a lot of the bomb drones with that semtex and the grenades that we threw just there. That made this last bit a lot easier, although I did go down here from that juggernaut, and thankfully Flynn had a revive pistol, so that could keep me up. And you can see the timer ticks down from 8 seconds. It was getting very, very close here with more and more stuff coming. But just because the timer ends, unfortunately it's not over. You do have to kill the last remaining enemies. And more than once we died here. You can see here Flynn goes down, and that's our last revive being used up. Just because the last enemies are still just as hard as all of the other enemies. So you need to be quite careful and just keep looking around. You see there an entire swarm of bomb drones comes around the corner, and another couple of AI. We came very, very close to dying here. So just try to play it safe, try to plate up whenever you can, try to cover each other when you plate up. So if one person says they're plating up, don't you plate up, like you keep your gun out in case bomb drones and stuff like that come around the corner. We were trying to stay very, very close together, but eventually all of the enemies were dead, and then we could just interact with the prompt to regroup at the blast doors, and we were finally done. Now, the reward for completing all of this, unfortunately, isn't that exciting. It's a shotgun blueprint called the punchline. I'm not sure if it's meant to be the punchline of a joke of like, hey, you were expecting something cool as a reward for this. But you also get one of the random 7 rewards if you haven't already got those from doing the normal version of it. So I hope you've enjoyed this playthrough of the entire veteran raid. I hope these tips helped you. If you did find this helpful, don't forget to leave a like, consider subscribing, turn your notifications on, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.
Show your hands!
Door! Door!
They're all dead.
Easy, they could be rigged.
No wires. These two are clear.
All clear here.
These are my soldiers. This is Arif. He volunteered to go in with Alex.
No, where the hell's Alex?
Echo 3-1, this is Kilo Actual. How copy? Echo 3-1, do you read?
Watcher, this is Bravo in a blind radio check. Laswell, are you getting this? Kate?
We're too deep. No signals.
Concrete and metal. Can't send or receive.
Yeah, it's a silo, all right.
Found power. Lights up. Holy hell.
يا ترى سلام رخيلة هنا.
Soviet ICBM. Liquid fuel, supersonic.
Nuclear.
Thermonuclear,
50 years old.
at least.
You think there's a warhead up there?
Let's find out.